Hi, nice to see you again for another amp dyno video. Today I have one of the stronger amplifiers from Rockford Fosgate. I got the Punch 501S on the bench connected to the dummy load. I always asked myself, why did Rockford print such ridiculous high numbers of the power ratings on the top of their amplifiers? This video is also subscriber supported. Thank you very much for sending this amp to me. And here are the manufacturer's ratings of the amplifier. It's rated 125 watts into a form load per channel, both channels driven. I use 13.7 volts. Let's start with the amp dyno. I will just begin as usual with 1 kHz continuous power test, 8 ohms bridge, that means 4 ohms per channel, both channels driven. And I will give my input signal. There it is. Oh, I will do a little more until we have a clipping point. That's it, I go back. This is what I call a nice signal. Maybe a little less. Let's do it more conservative. That's nice. I take a screenshot, stop signal input, and my cursor says, the scope says 73.6 volts. Oh, I have 74 volts. Let's calculate with 73.6 volts. And even with a power supply voltage of 13.7 volts, we outperformed the manufacturer specifications. We have 347 watts of continuous output power, mono 8 ohms, that means 173.5 watts per channel into a form load, both channels driven. And now I check how many amps the amplifier pulls out of my power supply. Wow, 40 amps. I calculated an efficiency of 63%. Continuous power test with 50 Hz. Oops. Try to adjust it a little better. I reduce my input signal a little bit. That's okay. In this case I have an output voltage of 72.8 volts. With 50 Hz I have an output power of 340 watts, mono 8 ohms, and 170 watts into a form load, both channels driven. Dynamic power test, 4 ohms per channel, 20 cycles. All cycles at the same voltage level. No clipping here on the first cycle, and I go to the last to check if there's clipping. Also free of clipping. We have 20 clean cycles, and my scope says maximum 76 volts. Let's calculate with 75.5 volts. Dynamically the 501S delivers 365 watts bridge, mono 8 ohms. That means 182.5 watts of dynamic power into a 4 ohm load per channel, both channels driven. And dynamically I calculated an efficiency of 66%. Dynamic power test with just 8 cycles. And let's have a look. First cycle is pretty clean. I go to the last cycle. Yes, it looks very good. And the scope says maximum voltage 79 volts. Yeah, let's calculate with 79 volts. With just 8 cycles, the amplifier puts out 400 watts, mono 8 ohms. And now let's check out for absolute peak power for 1 millisecond. That's a clean cycle. Scope says maximum voltage 83 volts. I go down. It even says 83.5. Let's use 83 volts. The amplifier puts out 440 watts mono 8 ohms and 220 watts per channel into a 4 ohm load of dynamic power with just one cycle. That means for just 1 millisecond. Let's go to 2 ohms per channel. There is clipping, I go back, can take a little bit more. That's all. And scope says 65 volts. I go to this point, let's calculate with 64.5 volts. Mono 4 ohms, that means 2 ohms per channel. The amplifier puts out continuous power, 533.5 watts. That's around 266 watts. 2 ohms per channel, both channels driven. Let's check out how many amps the amplifier pulls out of the power supply. Wow, 68.8 amps. Efficiency when I test with continuous power is 56%. Continuous power test with 50 Hz input signal. Let's go a little bit deeper, 62.5 volts. And with 50 Hz the amplifier delivers 500 watts mono 4 ohms or 250 watts per channel into a 2 ohm load, both channels driven. Dynamic power test, 2 ohms per channel. Check out my first cycle, it's okay. I go to the last cycle. Little bit of clipping, I will reduce a little bit. I think we can use this one. Scope says maximum 68 volts. Let's calculate with 67 volts. Dynamically with 20 cycles the amplifier puts out mono 4 ohms 575 watts. That's 287.5 watts into a 2 ohm load per channel, both channels driven. And in this case I calculated an efficiency of 61%. 8 cycles, all cycles at the same level, you can see this here. And we are on 71 volts. We check out the last cycle. Yeah, let's calculate with 71 volts, 646 watts into 4 ohms or 323 watts into 2 ohms, both channels driven with just 8 cycles. Mono 4 ohms or 2 ohms per channel, just one cycle, 1 millisecond signal. And we have one cycle here, scope says 81 volts. Yes, we can calculate with 81 volts. Wow, with just one cycle the amplifier shows some peak power capabilities. So it puts out 841 watts, mono 4 ohms or 420.5 watts into a 2 ohm load, both channels driven. And now I'm going to 2 ohms mono. That means 1 ohm per channel, both channels driven. I checked the first cycle, that's okay. I go to the last cycle. I can reduce my gain a little bit more. That looks much better. It says 53 volts. I have 53 volts. 2 ohms mono. The amplifier puts out 702 watts and 351 watts of dynamic power, 20 cycles, into a 1 ohm load per channel, both channels driven. 8 cycle dynamic power test. First cycle. Looks very good. Jumping to the last cycle. It's also okay. Let's calculate with 59.5 volts. The amplifier puts out 885 watts, that's 442.5 watts, into a 1 ohm load per channel, both channels driven. And now hunting for absolute peak power of the amplifier. And we have one cycle here. I go down. I would say let's calculate with 70.5 volts. I get 1242 watts, mono 2 ohms, or 621 watts into a 1 ohm load per channel, both channels driven, with just one cycle. I don't know how they get the 1500 watt rating, but we can give a little bit more distortion and until the clipping point and check if we get some more watts. Maybe we get 1500 watts out of the amp. Let's check out if we can squeeze out the 1500 watts, which Rockford printed on the top of the amplifier, with lots of distortion to the clipping point. So this one is without clipping. So there we have clipping, but we see we have higher voltage. Maybe we can go lower gain until it stops to clip in the negative. Still clipping. We are almost there. Still clipping. Yes, that's okay. And in this case we have, it says 78 volts. Let's calculate with 77 volts. I calculated with 77 volts and then we get 1482 watts out of the amplifier. But you can see above my line is still some signal, and I go to this point, then we have 78 volts. In this case we will have 1521 watts. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, why not leave a thumb? You can make me happy by leaving a thumb or subscribe to my channel. And if you already subscribed to my channel, don't forget to hit the bell button so you will get information about the next videos I'm planning for the future. See you next time and thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.